Adobe just added an incredible new generative AI remove tool to Lightroom and Camera Raw. In the past, tough clone jobs like removing these branches, especially where they touch the wing of the bird or overlap the background, would definitely mean a trip to Photoshop for a destructive edit. But now we can do the whole thing right in the raw, get a nice clean result, and if you want to keep editing the raw image, you can do that and you're not going to have to redo all that clone work. So this is just absolutely incredible. And to give you a sense of how good it is, you can even do something like swap the face of this owl. Not something I would do for this edit, but just to show you how good it is. Let's zoom in here and take a look at some of the edits I already did here. These are just different alternative faces of this owl. And take a look at what we get here. These are like clean. There's no obvious edge. It's got nice fall off. The lighting's consistent. There's high resolution. I mean, if it can do this so credibly, imagine what it can do for things like these branches that we actually do want to remove. So I'm going to step back here all the way to my original, and let's kind of step through how this edit would go. So in this case, I wanted to brighten up the bird and crop out some of the background. So I did this initial edit. And at this point, we can now take it forward to go and remove these distractions. Let's take a look at how this tool works. And in this case, there's a second owl in the background. Let's just suppose we wanted to remove it. And how would we go about doing that? We'd go click for the remove tool, go put it in the remove mode, and then we turn on this generative AI feature. Now, just for the sake of comparison, let's turn it off and take a look at the old approach. So with this off, if I go click and drag here, what it's going to do is locally analyze the image and try and heal by pulling in other parts of the content here. And it's done a pretty poor job. I mean, that's a pretty rough result. That's not acceptable. So I'm going to undo that. And let's instead take a look at how it does with the new generative AI turned on. So now when I go and brush this, something a little bit different is going to happen. Instead of immediately editing the image, it shows this red target area. And you can revise this as much as you want to add or subtract. You're basically telling it what to remove and then try and figure out what should go in there with AI. When you've got your targeting correct, you just click on apply. It's going to go reach out to the cloud and generate the content. I'm going to let this run real time the first time, and I'll speed it up for subsequent removals. And look at how good that is. I mean, that's a really credible result. And if you don't like the initial version, we have these different variations. So we can click through and try alternative ones to find the one we like. And if you don't like any of these, we can click refresh. It's going to go back out to the cloud, get 3 more options, and we can try those. So here's the 4th one and a 5th, and you just go find whatever result you want. But I think I don't really want to remove this owl. I kind of like having the second owl. So I'm going to go delete this, and let's instead work on the branches. But that's just generically how this tool works. And I should add, there's also this object aware feature. I don't use this as much, but here's how this works. If I go and try and just quickly brush on the main owl, it shows red exactly where I brushed it. It's not really giving me any lenience to go out to the edges of the feathers or deal with the rest of the bird. So it's kind of a bit sloppy. And instead, let's cancel it by hitting escape. Let's turn on object aware. And what this will do is automatically refine these red areas. So it's going to analyze the image and see how to expand it to cover the entirety of the wings of this bird. So with object aware turned on, it's just trying to help you more quickly target the areas you should remove. And you may find it helpful, you may not. I would definitely try and play with it both ways, but it can be a nice tool for working a little bit more quickly. I'm going to generally leave it off, though. I find that it can be a little bit rough for fine details like these branches. So let's go ahead and start the actual cloning. I'm going to zoom in and just work one area of the image at a time. I need to shrink my brush down with the bracket keys. And what I like to do is kind of size it to my target area and then just brush different areas on their own. So, I'm going to go and kind of hit a few branches here, but not all of them at once. And when I have these areas that are not contiguous, like this brushing is connected, but if they were separate, it might create multiple removals. Let's go click apply. It's done a great job. Let's go and just keep brushing here. So get the next one and just kind of hitting, areas that feel like they're sort of related, but not doing too much all at once. I want to get this area and then come for this as a second operation. Kind of makes it easier if there's any problem to do small bits rather than redoing large areas. And maybe missed a little bit there. If I hit escape, so I deselect that, I can brush right over there, hit apply and refine. So I can kind of repair the area I've already repaired rather than fully undoing it. So that looks nice and clean. Maybe hit that little spot there. And let's get this. So this will be a couple areas at once here. Let's go and apply that. And notice there's a little bit of branch there behind the wing. Maybe that's not going to work. We'll see how that does. So it's not great here. You see I created 2 different points because they were separate. Let's click and delete this one. And let me try that again. This time I want to get fully over that branch and try that again. And that looks pretty good to me. So now let's just keep going on the rest of these branches. I'm gonna move a little bit quick here. And if I need to undo or refine, I will. I probably could use a slightly smaller brush if I wasn't trying to work quickly, but this tool is pretty good. So let's just throw something at it and see how it handles this much of an adjustment at once. And I'm just gonna keep brushing these areas. If you ever get to a point where you need to remove something, you can go put the tool in a subtract mode or just hold down the Alt or Option and you can kind of remove red areas there. So if you get too aggressive and you don't want to remove as much, you can kind of tighten that up. And I think that can be really helpful to not remove too much and just tell it really what you want to go and clean up. So go ahead and apply that. Not bad. I'm going to keep what I have and just hit escape and paint over this to fix this little area, fix this little area. So if it's mostly correct, you can just keep adjusting it. But if it did a bad job, you could try the variations or redo. That looks great. Let's go and take a look here. So let's go and hit this stuff here. I'm going to try and just do this in one shot. We'll see how it does with such a large area. And maybe hit this little bit here. I don't think that's real nice. And maybe close that. Say apply. Did pretty good here, but obviously not here. We could try the variations and see if it cleaned it up elsewhere. So obviously, for some reason, it thinks there should be a branch here. So let's hit escape to deselect this and just paint newly over this. So it'll be nice and clear in this case that I really do want to get rid of that. By isolating this thing so clearly, it'll know to remove it. And it missed there a little bit. So sometimes the AI tool doesn't do as well. And for something like this, it's so simple to do. So let's hit escape and switch to the classic healing tool here. Instead, just brush. And I missed there. Let's undo that. Let's go brush and make sure I get this little bit there. And it's pulling from a strange area, like off canvas. And I don't even know how to fix that. That's just really weird. So let's undo that and try again. Hopefully it's not going to go stick something off canvas. There we go. And I'll just pull it back to something nearby. So that's clean. And so, use a mix of these tools as needed to clean things up. So I think this area is good. Let's go move up here. Let's tackle this little area here. So back to the AI remove tool. And, we're just going to keep moving. I'm going to go pretty quickly through this. It's going to get a little redundant, but this is the kind of painstaking work you might want to do. Granted, it would take you more time to do this in Photoshop probably. And even if it's the same time, this is going to save you time in the long run because it's right in the raw. So it's absolutely worth getting this right here. So we'll just kind of keep working. This stuff gets a little tricky in terms of there's so many overlapping pieces. You don't want to remove everything at once, but I'm going to try it with an aggressive approach and we'll just see how it does. It's probably going to take a few attempts to clean this up nicely, just given how chaotic this area is. And that's actually pretty good. We can try the variation, see if there's anything better. But I think that first one worked just fine. And if you want to see before and after, this little eyeball that you see before to after. So I'm going to go with it. And if you wanted to make it a little bit better, you certainly could. But I think that's good enough for what I want to show here. And let's go apply that. Again, we get that little straggler, so let's escape. Let's use the classic healing brush. Just hit that, and that looks just fine. So we'll switch back, go back to the new remove tool, and just kind of keep brushing. So everything we've done so far, we're just going to keep using variations on the same themes to get the rest of the job done. So let's just try that a little bit there. And pretty good. I hit escape, hit that one more time. So if it sticks something back you didn't want, you can hit it again. But since it did a good job with everything else, I'm going to leave that part that wasn't quite right and just remove what I already removed there. And try one more little bit here. So try and remove that. And if this fails a second time with the generative tool, we'll go back to the classic healing brush. Yep, it's not quite working. And so let's instead click on this and see if we can't get a little better result using just the classic healing brush here. And I'm still not happy with that. Let's undo that. So we'll go to the healing brush, just delete this and try and just be a little more targeted like that. I think that's better. Going back to our AI tool, be careful with swapping tools here if you have an active pin, because it will change the existing thing. And that's probably not what you want. So it can be a little bit strange when it updates when you didn't think you were going to be doing anything other than creating a new brush. Okay, that's looking good. Let's go down. I want to get rid of this little guy right here. Apply that. Looks good. Let's try and get rid of that branch there. Probably would normally leave it alone, but it's just a subtle detail that I think is a little bit distracting here. Let's try our variations. That looks better. And now in this case, I need to be thoughtful about what I want to remove here. I don't want to remove this branch because the background owl is standing on it. So it's probably not going to do a good job. So let's just remove this more distracting secondary branch, but leave these main perches alone. I don't need to remove all of these areas. I just want to remove the ones that I find distracting. And realistically, removing this is going to be a problem for me because it's going to probably not do a great job with the claw. And so I'm just going to leave that as is. Did a pretty good job up here. Down here, it still kind of filled things in. And what's going on down here, this needs a little bit of explanation. If we were to go and look at the original image before I cropped it, there's all this extra content outside of the image. And what I'm getting here is this tool is able to see beyond the bounds of what I have here. It's actually looking at the content I have cropped out. If we go and look at the crop tool, see it's pulling from areas down below here. So there's a bit of an order of operations here. If you want to go and remove things properly, you might do it before the crop just to give yourself a more clear idea what's going on. Or when you're in this scenario, what we can do is just switch to the classic tool instead. So let's go to our tool here, and it didn't really get this here. It added a little bit more branch, and we've got this. So let's try and tackle this a couple ways. I'm going to go ahead and escape. Let's first get rid of this branch here because I don't want that. So I'm going to more cleanly tell it to get rid of that. And that should work, which is, sort of there, but not entirely. Let's go fix that. And then for this area down below, I'm going to try it one more time, but it's probably going to fail because it's looking at content outside of what I've cropped. And so the invisible content here is going to be seen by this tool. And it's probably going to put in more of a sky gap that I don't want. So let's see what it does. Yeah, it's back there. If we look at the variations, in each case, it's doing the same thing. So I am going to just delete that and instead switch to the more classic healing tool, which can do a perfectly fine job in this area. This is a nice, simple job to do. So let it grab that. Let's pull in from a more similar area, like so. That'll look better. Maybe brush this area here. And maybe this one more brush down below because it is a little brighter than I want. And just need to move its source point. See if we can't find something that's going to let it go kind of dark. And, well, I'm going to leave it. It's fine as it is, but ideally it'd be a little bit darker and I could spend more time on it. That is going to bother me. Let's go and let's just straight clone. So in this case, I can maybe delete that. And we'll go and just brush over this area here. And then for that clone area, let's bring it into something more similar. And it changed tool mode. I clicked on the wrong pin. I think let's go click for the clone tool and just move this around like so. And I might even feather it a little bit, see if that's going to work. Yeah, there we go. So you really do need a mix of these tools to get the job done. So let's bounce out of that. Let's zoom back. And I'm going to hit escape to kind of hide all my pins. And let's just see the overall change here from our initial edit with all those branches to nice and cleanly removing everything. And I'm seeing one little area here I want to further tackle, but otherwise it's in pretty good shape. So let's just zoom in to this area here. And I'm gonna go click on my healing brush. And when I hover, we can see where is that coming from. So this version kind of caused that problem. I want to leave this here, so I'm going to just kind of clone over this again. So with generative on, shrink my brush, just paint in this area, try and knock that out because that looks a little bit strange. That's looking great. So now we'll just zoom back. One last time, look from before to after. That's looking really nice. And now see these videos for more Lightroom tips and tricks.